In today's episode, we will be looking at the classes and helping you choose which one is right for you. Welcome to Diablo 2 for Dummies. This series is meant for all the new players joining us veterans in Diablo 2 Resurrected. Each episode in this series is meant to explain, guide, and possibly entertain you about different things you might have questions about when you first start playing. My name is Rejnols and welcome back to the channel. Before you watch this video, I want you to comment below with which class you're planning on playing first. Then when you're done with the video, let me know if I made you change your mind. So, you started up Diablo 2, you're given the choice between 7 different classes, and at first glance it might not be super clear what you're getting yourself into. The good news is that all the classes are viable, and the bad news is that all the classes are viable. So I just wasted 10 seconds of your life, I'm sorry about that. Anyways, in rough terms, the classes can be broken down into 3 different categories. These categories are melee, caster, and hybrid. I say rough because in theory every class is a hybrid, but like if I have to be objectively correct about everything in this video, it will not be finished until Diablo 4 comes out. Let's kick things off with the casters. These are the classes that usually want to stay away from enemies and use their abilities from range to take care of them. A very common and probably most popular class is the Sorceress. With access to 3 different types of magic, there's sure to be something for everybody. The fire skill tree contains spells that are pretty much your classic mage and RPG skills. Stuff such as Fireball and Firebolt, but also has damage over time spells with Meteor and Firewall. The lightning skill tree has a chance to deal incredibly high damage with their abilities, but this is certainly more of a gambler's build, as you in theory have a chance to deal as little as 1 damage even at max level spells. The ice magic skill tree is what you will probably see most people go for. The combination of great AoE damage alongside crowd control while slowing or even freezing enemies makes it a very nice choice for new players, as it is fairly easy and straightforward to play while also being highly efficient. The personal favorite of every true edgelord out there, next up on the caster list is the Necromancer. In terms of casting damaging spells, the Necromancer has 2 choices, but it's all within the same skill tree. Poison spells gives your enemies a bad case of constipation, also known as reverse diarrhea, having them slowly kill themselves off. Unfortunately, having enemies slowly die over time rather than straight away is not something a lot of people can get behind. So I am fairly certain I'll be the only Necromancer running around with a maxed out poison dagger skill. Running up to a boss, stabbing them once before announcing that my job here is done, and then the rest of my party looking at me and saying, "But you didn't do anything." Your other choice is bone magic. This allows you to do stuff such as shoot out teeth, summon walls of, well, bones, and hurl bone spears at enemies. I don't think I have to tell you after my past analogy, but when it comes to casting, this is usually the more popular choice among Necromancer builds. With the Necromancer, you aren't limited to casting damage magic though. If you just don't feel like doing anything yourself, you can always summon a horde of various skeletons to do the job for you. No matter if you want to play as a maniac stabbing monsters with a dagger or cosplay as your favorite undead protagonist from an anime while summoning hordes of skeletons, you are most likely also going to be putting some points into the Curse skill tree. They aren't nearly as flashy in terms of visuals, but their effectiveness is absurd, so don't skip out on them just so you can poison your enemies for 15 more damage like me. Moving on to the melee classes, we have the poster boy of every fantasy game ever, the Barbarian. Being what can only be described as the most vanilla of fantasy classes, the Barbarian kinda does what you expect him to do. He swings his weapons, which he can dual wield because he's a Barbarian, and he can also one-hand two-handed weapons. While swinging these weapons, he uses skills that allows him to, well, swing them slightly faster and better. And he also has some kinda useless throwing abilities if you just want to mix it up a little bit. You can also yell at enemies for spending their money on 2D waifus, after which they will run away in shame for a few seconds before coming back, because it's totally okay to spend money on that, and I will not apologize for enjoying. I'm sorry about that, that got a little bit too personal. Moving on to the Paladin, who is another very popular choice among the community simply because he is kinda like the Sorceress, quite easy to play and straightforward, but melee. He also kinda has the Giga Chad meme face, so I'm sure that works out for him in some way as well. He excels while using a shield, he can use 1 aura at a time, either offensive or defensive, that provides a persistent bonus to him and his party members. His offensive skill tree is broken down into melee abilities, shield abilities, and magic abilities. The most well-known Paladin build probably has to be the Hammerdin. Besides sounding like one of the Indian meme songs from 2010, the Hammerdin is probably up there with the Ice Sorcerer as one of the easiest and straightforward builds in the game, making it another obvious choice for new players. I feel like I've repeated that sentence quite a lot in this video. We have now arrived at the hybrid section of classes. They can almost all be either casters, melee, or ranged, but you will find the best success with them if you focus on just one thing. Because as the old saying goes, having access to all the traits usually means you can't master any of them. Because each build for them is so different, we're gonna turn this into a bit of a rapid fire section and just go through them kind of quickly. People know what rapid fire means. I don't have to explain it means quickly. I'm just such a fucking idiot. We will start off looking at the the Druid. His builds can vary from elemental casting with a focus on fire skills or wind skills, which translates to cold skills in this game, to being a slightly psychotic and murderous version of Snow White, summoning his own personal murder suit. So I guess if you want to play the Sorceress and the Necromancer at the same time, you can kind of do it with the Druid. The ass in, yes I made that joke despite being 23 years old and I am in fact very mature, thank you for asking, is the class I can least recommend. Not because the assassin is bad or inferior to the other classes per se, but simply because it's the class I still have the hardest time understanding what exactly are supposed to be doing. I mean, they can put down traps that shoot out stuff, that looks kind of cool. They can also throw out stuff themselves, which, I mean, that's also cool, I suppose. But they can also kick and punch while summoning a shadow clone. It's just not, I don't kind of get any of it. Both the assassin and the druid were DLC characters that came along with the Lord of Destruction expansion, and it does kind of feel like they were just given a little bit of everything, so no one could complain that Blizzard was focusing more on one type of character over the other. That doesn't mean you can't have fun as them, I'm just saying that they are very split in what they're doing, and even when they're doing that one thing, they're not great at it, I suppose. Moving on to the last class, we have the Amazon. My personal favorite of the hybrid classes are the Amazon because it's actually pretty damn clear what you get yourself into when you invest in their skill trees. You have the Spear and Javelin skill tree, which lets you guessed it, enhance the power of either the throwable javelins or stabby spears. The Bow and Crossbow skill tree lets you fire an assortment of magical arrows, such as the ludicrously hilarious guided arrow. And finally, their passive tree that makes you slightly better at anything you want to do. As I said, it's really quite straightforward, but I personally find the Amazon to be the most enjoyable of the 3 hybrid classes. With all the classes out of the way, there are a few things I want to say before we wrap up this episode. The first thing is that I would advise you to not look up a build the first time you play. Unless you're really set on just completing normal as fast as possible, you should just play through with the class you have chosen, putting points into whatever you feel like and giving it a try. Because normal is difficult enough that you want to try and make a build yourself, but not so difficult that you have to go online and find a meta build. On top of that, if you are a new player, you should totally try and experiment in using different skills. And if you're scared that you'll end up wasting your time, don't worry, there are plenty of ways for you to reset your skill points, and one of them is simply speaking to an NPC. Just remember you can only do it once per difficulty, so don't just do it at like level 3. Yeah, I'm calling you out on this one, Simon. So first time you play, just play whatever you want, however you want, and have fun. Then once you're done with normal or having a lot of trouble getting further into the game, you can look up a build. And with that, we are officially finished with the first episode of Diablo 2 for Dummies. Remember to go down and edit your comment from earlier if I made you change your mind on which class to play. If you want to know more about any specific class, I can recommend checking out the Finding the Best Class in Diablo 2 series by Seer. He delivers information in a simple to understand way whilst also being funny, but of course not quite as funny as me. While you wait for the next brain expanding episode in this series, you can watch my ridiculous recap of Diablo 1's story to truly appreciate all the lore and details the developers put into this franchise.